Federal Drive is presented by GEHA, Government Employees Health Association, proudly providing health and dental benefits to federal employees and their families. Visit GEHA.com.
The White House has set a goal to reduce military spouse unemployment by 5%, but there's only so much it can do since it significantly scaled back federal hiring. Now the Defense Department is stepping in with new efforts to address the issue. Federal News Network's Anastasia Obis is here with more details. Anastasia, thanks for joining me.
Hi, Terry.
What's the latest on this from the Defense Department then?
Yeah, so DoD's Undersecretary for Personnel and Readiness recently issued a memo telling the department to make maximum use of existing hiring authorities and flexibilities to support military spouses. These flexibilities include authorizing alternative work sites for spouses and also prioritizing military spouses for non-competitive appointments before they consider other candidates. So here's one example. DoD schools are now allowed to hire military spouses as soon as they receive change of station orders instead of waiting until 30 days before they have to move. So that's a big progress. The memo also introduces new reporting requirements that will help the Defense Department understand how many spouses were considered for a role, how many were selected, how many were rejected, and why. It also requires the military services to share recommendations for improving military spouse hiring authorities. The department also wants hiring managers to take advantage of this existing website. It's called Military Spouse Education and Career Opportunities. Hiring managers would have to be trained to use the system, and they would have to be given access to it. But the idea is that they will use the inventory to identify military spouses who are eligible for roles. There will also be what's called open continuous job announcements for military spouses. So hiring paths will be limited only to military spouses. And these postings will allow hiring managers to build kind of resume banks and quickly fill vacancies without even advertising them.
Anastasia, what are you hearing about what people think are good things in this memo and where there are gaps?
Yeah, I spoke with Sue Hopping. She's the founder and president of the National Military Spouse Network. And she said that seeing this stringent reporting requirement is quite heartening. The military services are supposed to deliver these reports monthly, and this is something that the department has never tracked consistently or at all. But Sue said she hopes the department doesn't miss out on this opportunity to get more granular with this data, like having a data point on roles that offer alternative work flexibilities and allow spouses to work remotely or to telework. If the data is kind of surface level, it will not be as useful as it might be. It will not be able to tell a full story. As for the gaps, first, we talked about alternative work sites. The memo encourages those alternative work sites and hiring flexibilities, but you said the proof is in the pudding. How are they going to implement this? They can make all the suggestions they want, but unless they follow through, the memo won't really make a difference. So we'll have to see how this unfolds and how they decide to go about implementing this. For alternative work sites, it's something that I wanted to highlight. It's not really clear how effective that would be. It would really depend on the types of jobs offered to military spouses or the types of jobs the department will be pushing spouses towards. So let's say if it's classroom jobs, they will require you to be on site. Then we don't really know how helpful the flexibility part would be.
Anastasia, it seems like a lot of these proposals in this memo have been around for a while. So it's one thing to put out this memo directing installations and commanders to follow it, but entirely another, as you mentioned, to make it implementable. What's the strategy for getting from memo to practice?
Well, I think there are a couple of things that will need to come into place. First of all, military spouses will have to be aware of the resources that are available to them. And that would require a whole marketing push to make sure that this is how the Defense Department is doing things now. This is how they're looking for candidates, and So make sure that your profiles are updated, your information is updated, and you keep up with it. Then it will require another push, which is making sure that hiring managers are trained. They know that this is available to them and that the push is to hire military spouses. So the Defense Department will have to bring a lot of these communities on board. And by the way, they're piloting this within the next 18 months. So we will see how it unfolds. If you ask me, it's pretty ambitious to ensure that everyone's on board. The word is out. This is what we're doing, and this is how we're doing it.
How far does this go to address the barriers that military spouses really face? Are there other issues that this memo doesn't resolve?
So as you mentioned, the White House wants to reduce military spouse unemployment by 5%. That's also ambitious. And with this memo, it's just one agency introducing these changes. And by the way, we'll see how they're implemented. But military spouses work across the federal government. So hopefully other agencies will follow and they will have their version of this policy. Also, one of the biggest barriers is childcare, access to affordable and reliable childcare. There will not be meaningful change unless childcare is addressed. And for the childcare piece of it, one thing that is happening right now is military services are trying to push for higher rate for childcare workers. It's something that they've been working on for a couple of years because Congress approved higher rates for childcare workers, but for some reason they haven't been able to implement it. Now it looks like service by service, they're making progress, but we will see how exactly it's implemented in practice. And then there is also the retention issue that is not addressed in the memo, but is very important.
That's Federal News Network's Anastasia Obis. Anastasia, thanks for bringing us this story. We'll keep our fingers crossed.
Thank you, Terry.
You can find her story at federalnewsnetwork.com.